We've all had that moment where motivation hits hard. You hear a powerful speech, watch a clip that lights a fire under you, or maybe you wake up one morning full of energy and clarity, and for a while, you're unstoppable, you're reading, studying, working out, chasing that goal. But then what happens? A week later, maybe even just a few days later, that spark fades. You don't feel like opening the book. You don't feel like waking up early. You don't feel like putting in the work. And that's when most people stop. The truth is, motivation is a temporary visitor. It comes and goes depending on your mood, your energy levels, or even the weather outside. If your entire future depends on whether or not you feel motivated, you're giving your life over to chance. You're basically saying, if I wake up in the right mood, I'll succeed. If not, I'll just drift. That's not how breakthroughs are made. That's not how champions are built. What separates those who achieve greatness from those who just dream about it is discipline. Discipline is the steady hand when motivation disappears. It's the voice in your head that says, I'm going to do this because I said I would, not because I feel like it today. Discipline is what gets you through the study session when you'd rather be scrolling on your phone. It's what keeps you practicing when your friends are out having fun. It's what gets you to show up consistently long after the initial excitement is gone. Philosophers have always known this. Aristotle famously said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit. Think about that. Excellence doesn't come from one burst of motivation, one all-nighter of studying, or one big effort when the mood strikes. It comes from the accumulation of small, disciplined actions repeated over time. The student who masters their field, the athlete who dominates their sport, the entrepreneur who builds a thriving business, they're not relying on motivation alone. They've trained themselves to act with discipline whether or not they feel inspired. Psychology backs this up too. Studies show that habits formed through repetition are far more reliable than trying to rely on willpower in the moment. Willpower fades under stress. Discipline, once built, becomes automatic. It's like brushing your teeth. You don't debate whether or not you should do it. You just do it because it's part of who you are. When discipline becomes your default, success stops being a question of if and becomes a matter of when. And let's be real, discipline isn't glamorous. It doesn't always feel good in the moment. But that's exactly what makes it so powerful. Anyone can work hard when they feel like it. The real difference shows up on the days when you don't. When you choose to sit down and study even when you're tired, when you go for the run even though it's raining, when you push yourself to finish the assignment even when Netflix is calling your name. That's where self-respect is built. Because deep down, you start to trust yourself. You prove to yourself that you're someone who follows through. And that self-trust is priceless. Motivation can inspire you, but discipline builds your identity. Motivation says, I hope I can do this. Discipline says, this is who I am. And once you adopt the identity of someone who is disciplined, the results take care of themselves. You don't have to wonder if you'll be ready for the exam. You've studied consistently. You don't have to wonder if you'll be fit for the competition. You've trained day in and day out. Discipline is the insurance policy that guarantees your future. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying motivation is useless. Motivation is the spark that gets the fire going. But sparks fade unless you feed the flame. Discipline is the wood that keeps the fire burning through the night. It's not as flashy, but it's steady, reliable, and lasting. That's what will carry you through the long seasons of hard work when the outcome still feels far away. So if you're sitting here waiting to feel motivated before you start, you're already behind. Stop asking, do I feel like it? And start asking, what did I commit to? That shift will change everything. Discipline doesn't demand perfection. It just demands consistency. Miss a day. Fine. Get back at it tomorrow. The goal is not to be flawless. The goal is to be relentless. And here's the paradox. When you practice discipline long enough, motivation actually starts showing up more often. Because you see results, you feel progress. Success itself becomes motivating. But it doesn't start that way. It starts with discipline. So the next time you catch yourself waiting for motivation, remember the success doesn't belong to the motivated, it belongs to the disciplined. Push yourself, even when you don't feel like it. That's where the real transformation begins. If discipline is the foundation, then embracing discomfort is the door you have to walk through if you want to level up. And this is where so many people get stuck. Because the natural instinct of the human brain is to avoid pain and seek comfort. That's survival 101. But here's the catch. What keeps you safe rarely helps you grow. Comfort zones are cozy, but they are also cages. Think about it. Every breakthrough moment in your life probably came after some form of discomfort. Maybe it was speaking up in class when your heart was pounding. Maybe it was forcing yourself through a late night study session even though you were exhausted. Maybe it was stepping onto a stage, applying for a program, or sending that message even though rejection felt terrifying. Each of those moments was uncomfortable, but it was also transformative. Growth and discomfort are two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. Philosophers have long wrestled with this truth. Friedrich Nietzsche famously said, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." At its core, that's about discomfort. It's about the stressors, the struggles, the hard edges of life that test us, refine us, and ultimately shape us into stronger versions of ourselves. Modern psychology has a name for it too: stress inoculation. Just like a vaccine exposes you to a controlled dose so your system can adapt, discomfort is the dose of challenge that strengthens your resilience over time. But here's the problem: our culture has trained us to avoid discomfort at all costs. We have instant entertainment, instant gratification, endless ways to distract ourselves from the hard work in front of us. And while that feels good in the moment, it robs us of the very pressure that forges growth. Because the truth is, the assignments that stretch your mind, the study sessions that push your limits, the hours you spend working when everyone else is relaxing, those are the very things that prepare you for the opportunities you say you want. Let me put it this way: discomfort is the tuition you pay for success. There's no shortcut, there's no loophole. If you want to build real confidence, real skill, and real results, you've got to be willing to lean into the hard things that most people run from. And I want you to think about this: discomfort isn't just something you endure, it's something you can learn to embrace. Because discomfort is feedback. It's a signal that you're growing, that you're operating outside the limits of who you were yesterday. It's the weight at the gym that feels heavy now but makes you stronger tomorrow. It's the unfamiliar concept in your textbook that feels frustrating today but expands your intelligence for life. Discomfort is not your enemy, it's your greatest teacher. The real danger is when you avoid it. Every time you choose comfort over challenge, you reinforce the idea that you can't handle more. You shrink your world, you lower your ceiling. But every time you choose discomfort, every time you push yourself to go a little further, to stay a little longer, to try even when you might fail, you prove to yourself that you are capable of more than you thought. And that proof compounds into unshakable confidence. One of the most powerful things I've learned is that failure isn't what breaks you. Avoiding the possibility of failure is. Because when you avoid it, you avoid the very experiences that could have built you up. When you step into discomfort, you might stumble, yes, but you also discover new strength. You learn new skills. You find out that you're not as fragile as you once believed. And here's the paradox: the more you practice embracing discomfort, the less intimidating it becomes. What once felt impossible becomes your new normal. The student who once struggled to study for an hour builds the stamina for 3. The athlete who once dreaded practice finds themselves chasing extra reps. The person who once feared speaking up becomes the one leading the room. That's how growth works. You don't eliminate discomfort, you expand your capacity to carry it. So as you think about your future, ask yourself honestly, am I choosing comfort or am I choosing growth? Because you can't choose both. Success doesn't live in the safe zone. It lives in the stretch zone. And the more you learn to welcome that stretch, the faster you'll grow into the person you were meant to become. At the end of the day, discomfort is not a punishment, it's a passport. It's the stamp that proves you're crossing borders into new territory. Every challenge you face, every uncomfortable moment you endure, is evidence that you're moving toward something bigger than where you started. So here's the challenge I'll leave you with the next time you feel that pull toward the easy choice. Stop and ask yourself, what would happen if I leaned into the hard one instead? That single shift could change everything. Because growth doesn't come from comfort, it comes from courage. And courage lies on the other side of discomfort. Discipline builds your foundation. Discomfort stretches you. But the third piece, the one that ties everything together, is vision. Because here's the truth: you can be disciplined for a while, you can push through discomfort for a season, but if you don't have a long-term vision pulling you forward, eventually you'll burn out. It's easy to get caught up in the short term, how tired you feel today, how boring the assignment looks, how tempting it is to procrastinate or take the easier road. Those excuses whisper in your ear constantly, you deserve a break, you'll do it tomorrow. This one choice doesn't really matter, and if you zoom in close enough, they almost sound convincing. But when you step back, when you widen your perspective, you realize those small excuses are the very thing robbing you of the future you want. Philosophers used to say that human beings live in 2 times at once: the immediate present and the imagined future. The problem is, most people get stuck living only in the present, chasing comfort, distraction, and instant gratification. They trade what they want most for what they want now. And then years later, they wonder why they're unfulfilled, why they never reached their potential, why their dreams stayed dreams. The people who break through, whether in studying, business, sports, or life, are the ones who stay connected to the bigger vision. They see their future self so clearly that it changes how they act today. Instead of asking, what feels good right now, they ask, what serves the person I'm becoming? That one question changes everything. Psychologists call this delayed gratification, and the research is crystal clear. The ability to delay short-term comfort for long-term reward is one of the strongest predictors of success. The famous marshmallow experiment with kids proved it decades ago. Those who could resist the marshmallow in front of them for a bigger reward later went on to achieve more across multiple areas of life. Why? Because they had vision. They could hold the future in their minds long enough to override the impulse of the moment. And here's the thing: you already know this truth in your bones. Think about studying. No one loves sitting down with pages of notes, hours of reading, or complex formulas, but you do it because you're chasing something bigger, an education, a career, a future that expands your opportunities. The short term might feel tedious, but the long-term reward is freedom. The same is true for athletes. They wake up before dawn, run drills until their bodies ache, and practice the same moves over and over. Not because the repetition is fun in the moment, but because they're playing for something bigger, a championship, a legacy, a standard of excellence. That vision of victory fuels their discipline and gives meaning to their discomfort. Your life works the same way. If you keep your eyes only on the short term, you'll fall into the trap of excuses. But if you anchor yourself to the long-term vision, those excuses lose their power. Suddenly, studying an extra hour isn't torture, it's an investment. Waking up early isn't punishment, it's preparation. Saying no to distractions isn't deprivation. It's protection of what matters most. And let's get honest, the excuses will always be there. They don't go away, but your vision can grow stronger than them. When you know where you're going, when you can picture the life you're building, you stop negotiating with your excuses. You don't argue with them, you outgrow them. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is to start living as if your future self is already watching you. Imagine the version you 5 years from now, the one who has succeeded, who has built the life you're dreaming about. What would that version of you want you to do today? Would they want you to scroll for another hour? Or would they want you to push yourself a little harder, to study with focus, to keep moving toward the vision? That perspective creates accountability, because at the end of the day, you're not just letting yourself off the hook in the moment, you're letting down the future you who's counting on you to follow through. So yes, discipline matters. Yes, embracing discomfort matters. But without vision, it's easy to lose your way. Vision is the compass that keeps you aligned. It's what reminds you why you started. It's what transforms daily effort into meaningful progress. The challenge is simple, but not easy. Stop living only for the next 5 minutes and start living for the next 5 years. Make choices today that your future self will thank you for, not regret. Because here's the reality, your excuses only live in the short term. Your success lives in the long term. And the moment you choose vision over excuses, you stop being controlled by the present and start creating your future. So let me leave you with this. Don't sacrifice your future for the comfort of now. Trade the excuses for vision and watch how far you can go.